my name is Cameron, and I'm going to be demonstrating an application that I wrote in JavaScript that is called Team Profile Generator. I do have a 5-minute maximum video length, so I'm going to jump right into it because we kind of have a lot to go through. I'm going to just show the code and explain the logic quickly, and then I'm going to demo it out so we can see how this works. The bulk of how this application runs is found in an employee JavaScript file. What's happening here is that on line 36, we start our logic with an asynchronous function called initializeEmployee. What it's going to do is it's going to use inquirer prompt to ask a single question found here in this const to the user, which the user is going to select, do I want to add a manager, an engineer, an intern, or do I want to be done? It's going to save the answer into this answers const. Then it is going to push that answer up to a global variable here on line 16 called current user selection. And then it's going to go ahead and run another function called employee information generator. That can be found here on line 61. It's just an if-else code block. It's going to look at that global variable, and depending on what the user selected, it's going to then run them through accordingly. We'll just use manager as an example. We don't need to go through all of them. They all act very similar. It's if they selected manager, then essentially we're going to run a function that asks more prompts specific to what kind of information that should be gathered for a manager. It's going to take that information and save it in a const called manager add. And then lastly, let's take a look and see what manager add does. Or pardon me, the function call ask manager questions. What's going to be saved into manager add? Well, here it is. All of the manager, the engineer, and the intern all look very similar. We have a manager questions array of objects. Again, inquirer prompt information. What happens here with this asynchronous function is it's going to ask the questions, save the answers into a const called answers, and then we're going to create a new manager constructor function, and it's grilling down into those answers for the information. You can see the constructor function has been created here. And then lastly, it's going to return that, in this case, it's going to return the manager constructor function object. Let's jump back now here. So once we've done that, as this example, we have our manager add information. It's going to push that object. The manager add is going to push it to an array called managers array. I have an array for engineers, managers, and interns. Once it's finished pushing that, we are going to run a function called reinitialize. Reinitialize is very simple. It's just a loop through. Remember, one of the questions that one of the choices that they have is to simply be done. I don't want a user to infinitely need to create, more and more employees and never be able to break out of the application to get their results. So we have done. This is saying if they have an answer other than done, I'll loop them back through initialize employees so they can continue to add content and information. If their answer was done, then we're going to move on to the second half of the which is, I believe it's, nope. Then we'll move into the second half of the employee information generator. The second half here is very simple. We are going to create a const called content HTML, and within it, we're going to save the, getting this in order. Okay, yep, we're going to be saving the results of this ran function as we pass through all three arrays of the create employees information. So let's take a glance at the generate HTML. The three functions listed here, create manager, create engineer, create intern, they all act very similar. So I'm just going to show an example of one. But here's our function, that generate HTML that we called with those three parameter pieces that we're passing through. It's going to return HTML backtick notation string text with template literal here for a function call with this information. Here's one example as we pass that through, create a variable. That's just an empty string, and we have a for loop, and all it's going to do is add grill down information for each array item and continue to add that into this return manager string, which would then get generated dynamically here in this function.